There's something evil in the air, something rotten. It changes people, parasites. They take control of their host and turn them into something of nightmares. This is Steep Rock Valley. Something happened here. Something was unleashed and I'm trying to get out. Every single day is a moment lost where their grip gets stronger and they take hold. I survived in a parasitic apocalypse in Minecraft. Here's what happened. Day 1, I graciously accepted a gift of some amazing starting pieces and items. There was a few tools and blocks here that I could begin the journey with, which were just left in a crate which I found within this valley. I began to start to build a frame of what would become my place of salvation, the home that we would survive in within the apocalypse, made out of very dry and worn away wood. The trees around in the valley were worn, tough and extremely hard to cut down, especially when I had no tools to do so. It took ages of punching at the bottom until they would fall and the whole structure would crumble to the floor. These ancient trees were extremely thick and they were going to be hard to make them fall, so I decided to craft some tools of the trade to aid me in gathering some materials. This was like starting off in the Stone Age. In fact, even before the Stone Age, but these were the steps required if I was to survive in such a tough and unforgiving world. My house was definitely coming along, although it was not really anything impressive. I really just wanted to build something small so I could just wait out the hours of the night in, so I didn't have any threats to deal with so early on in the adventure. This is where I really started to go to work. I only had a few hours left of daylight and time to actually finish constructing this, or at least finish constructing it to an acceptable degree which would provide a small measurable amount of defense in my favor. After completing the main perimeter, I made myself a door so I could actually enter and exit whenever I wanted to. This would also make a really good way to leave the building, whilst also providing a block for the zombies and parasites later to not be able to actually get in. I also got to work on the second floor. The first step of doing this was obviously creating a set of ladders so I could actually climb up to the top of the floor and then start constructing it. The second floor was basically just going to be a mirror image of this one, just another wooden floor stacked on top to provide some additional space, which I'd use for things like storage, extra chests, anvils, enchanting tables, anything which I gathered a little bit later in the adventure to make things a little bit easier on myself. This is because the actual width of the building was not really that wide and the length wasn't really that great either, so having one floor alone really didn't provide much benefit at all without extending it. Day 2 is when I really starting to move the ball in motion. Basically, I began the mining journey because we needed to get some kind of rich ores and minerals to actually construct some stronger materials and some tools which would aid me in progression, especially things like swords, because it was already nighttime at this point and very early in the morning and I had no means of defense, and I couldn't skip the nights at this point either because I hadn't found any sheeps or made any beds. I was mainly just looking for iron, but also things like coal and anything that I could find which would be beneficial. And as you can see, I crafted myself a stone pickaxe so I could actually gather some of these things from the blocks that I'd mined, but you'll see that the ore pieces themselves look very strange. They look like strange radioactive encased blocks, and when you mine them they have the ores and minerals inside. This was a very new concept to me as everything looked completely different in this place that I was in. This was coal, but it really doesn't look like it. You'll see this is a consistent theme after gathering many other minerals which look the same. I would gather a ton of this to fuel the furnaces which I would need later, unknowingly also mining other minerals which I'd have to actually identify later. I also actually took the liberty to make the first furnaces deep down in the mines below. This is because I hadn't got back to my base yet and it was an easy way of actually smelting everything, so I had them available when I would actually return. Now you can see over here I did actually get some iron and I got quite a fair deal of it too, so this was a pretty successful first run. This would of course be extremely useful later for literally everything which I needed it for, and I would be able to return and put a ton of it in the chest. Not to mention to be able to craft some of the iron mining drills as you just saw, which I could also use, as well as a few different armor pieces early on for some additional protection. As you can see, I could already make a chest piece and a helmet which would provide me with a little bit of resistance against the parasites and zombies which would face off against me later. Nearly making a full armor set already on day 2, pretty impressive. This would also be my first run-in with hostile creatures, more particular zombies deep down in the caves and caverns below, but I didn't give them a single chance as I had crafted myself a powerful warhammer which should allow me to cleave off even their limbs with only a few strikes. There was also a deep cave system down below where a dungeon was with many monsters in, something which I probably wasn't ready to tackle this early on, and provided a level of danger and threat which I wasn't ready to face. But for better or worse, I decided somehow that it was a good idea to mine down and try to see if I could actually take some of them out. This was just mainly due to temptation of the possibility of there being great loot and treasures down there which I could plunder, although the danger to the reward factor was extremely high, meaning the ratio of getting hurt to actually the chance of getting the rewards was extremely high, and the chance of obtaining such loot was pretty low. So this was kind of a bit of a stupid blunder which I was about to pursue. Now you can see there's an absolute horde of zombies down here. I'm not sure what's attracting them, but they're literally prospering deep down below in the dark. I took most of them out, but the problem is they just kept on coming. There was some source from which they were coming from. I'm not sure if they were being summoned or if they had just gathered here in large numbers, but it was definitely a true danger. As you can see, there's some kind of obelisk down in this cave too, which I was extremely curious of actually inspecting. The number of zombies here is just absolutely endless. One thing which I realized, there must be some kind of spawner, and on top of that, there's some kind of skeleton skull on top of it too, which would definitely make a nice trophy to put inside my new base. And as you can see, they got the better of me. It was on day 3 as I was mining and simply minding my own business. I came upon some strange structure underground, some kind of mine shaft, some kind of abandoned dungeon of sorts, and it was really eerie and I couldn't really hear many sounds coming from within. This meant perhaps it was abandoned. I decided just to enter just to make sure, and also try to see what was within, and secretly hoped in the back of my mind that there would be no threat which I would have to face. But this thing, it went deep. There were staircases down, holes in the floor, cavities in the caves where I could easily drop and fall to my doom. But there was a ton of loot which was enchanted, all ready for me to gather and collect. Nothing stopping me from just taking it. Although I knew as I would go deeper and deeper into the system, I would get lost and the potential dangers would definitely increase the further down that I went. Each of the subsections of this strange mineshaft was separated by metal bars. These were caging the different corridors which sprouted off the sides, which led into different chasms. These would obviously lead to different loot rooms where chests of plunderous loot could be found, and also strange and chilling enemies within. It was really based upon the chance of which one I decided to walk through, which would determine what I would face next. But as I would progress slowly and find myself feeling like I had nearly conquered this place, there would be another staircase which would lead yet again to another floor below, or another spawner within which would spawn some kind of evil monster which I would have to go up against, and this was an endless process. The spiders were also pretty spooky too. It wasn't just parasites I had to worry about, it was strange mutations and experimental beasts which were lurking below, probably more escape lab experiments which I wasn't aware of. This made things complicated, but it also meant the danger wasn't just down to parasites, but also down to something greater, something also equally as strange and perhaps as dangerous.